Okay, hi everyone. I think we'll get started with the presentation now. Thanks so much for joining us for the Haskayne Master of Management live webinar. My name's Amanda Ramsey and I'm the admission specialist for this program. We're going to start with a quick agenda of what we're going to cover today. So firstly, we're going to go over the program. So what's it all about? What's the length? All of that. We'll get into admissions information, and then we have a special guest with us here today, our career consultant for the program, Gillian Robertson, and she's going to tell you all about the career services that are embedded into this program. After that, we're going to have a question break, so I'd really encourage you to ask Gillian questions. She's very busy with our current student group, so she's not always at our admissions events. So this is a great opportunity to ask her questions about career services. And then we're going to meet some of the current students in the program, Desmond Yu and Seamus Westra. They're going to kind of give an overview of their experience in the program so far, and they have done their program online up until now, so they'll be able to give you some insight on the virtual environment. And we're going to have time at the end for Q&A with the current students and just any other questions that you guys might have after watching the presentation. All right, so what is the Master of Management program? Well, it's actually the newest program at Haskayne. We launched it in 2019 and our inaugural cohort graduated in February of 2020. Our second cohort recently started the program just this last September, and we'll have our third cohort starting in the fall of 2021. We developed this program because Calgary's job market has become a lot more competitive over the last 5 years, and we had a lot of students from a variety of disciplines interested in transferring into our Haskayne BCom or coming in and doing a Haskayne BCom after degree. So we thought in order to service this need, we would develop a master's program that was designed for students from other disciplines to be able to come in and get a master's degree instead of a second bachelor's degree, and complement the degree skill set they learned in their bachelor's with a business skill set. So increasing our practical business knowledge and interpersonal skills necessary to become competitive in the job market. We also strive to connect students with Calgary's business community. We feel like that's really important for development. All right, let's start off with one of the most common questions that the admissions team gets asked. What is the difference between a Master of Management and an MBA? The first two things are who it's designed for and the program length. Those are the two major things that are different. The Master of Management is designed for new graduates, so people who might not have any work experience just yet, up until 2 years of work experience. So again, these are fresh or newer graduates just out of their bachelor's degree. It's also designed for non-business degree graduates. So the program is not actually open to business graduates. So everyone coming in is going to be new to this topic. And this program is completed in 10 months as a cohort-based program. So you don't have a ton of flexibility in the schedule. You do need to commit to 10 months full-time to go through this program as a cohort. And what cohort means is basically you're going to be staying with your same group of classmates for the whole program, which doesn't afford you a ton of flexibility, but it does afford you the ability to do a lot of networking within your cohort and develop close relationships as you go through the whole program together. Being that the program is 10 months, there is not time to do a specialization option. Rather, the goal is to give you a broad business education covering a lot of different topics. Within the MBA program, on the other hand, it's designed for mid-career professionals. The average years of work experience in the MBA is 6 years, and you do need to have at least 2 years of post-degree work experience to enter an MBA program. It's a bit longer because in the second year, you have the option to do a specialization in one of the topics that are listed on the screen. And the program can be completed full-time or part-time if you are working. So it takes about 20 months if you're doing it full-time and takes about 32 months if you're doing it part-time, evenings and weekends. Both programs are open to non-business graduates. And if you are a business graduate, we do have a program that's more so designed for you called the Accelerated MBA. And it's a little bit shorter because it cuts out some of the courses you would have already worked on during your business degree. So that one only has 11 required courses, and you also have the opportunity to do a specialization. If you've come here today a little bit disappointed because you have a business degree and you don't qualify for Master of Management, that's okay. In the future, you can look towards this accelerated MBA option, but you will need to get 2 years of post-degree work experience. All right, so a little bit more about the format of the Master of Management program. As I mentioned, it's done in 10 months, it is full-time, and it is considered intensive because you're covering a lot in this 10-month period. We've broken down the courses. So instead of doing 10 half courses, you're going to be doing 20 quarter courses, which are 1.5 credits. This means you're covering a lot of course topics. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you an example of what a schedule would look like, so you can see some of the different topics and how they're all scheduled in the program. Classes are going to be scheduled all morning or all afternoon, depending on which cohort you're in. And then for the other half of your day, you would be working on tutorials, career coaching, and experiential opportunities. So you do kind of have to have your Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30 free to do this program. Being that it is intensive, we generally recommend that you not work while doing this program. You want to have time to take advantage of extracurricular activities as well as have time to excel in your academics. We do every year get a couple of students who decide to work part-time in the evenings or weekends, and these are typically people who juggled a lot during their undergrad, but our official advice is to not be working during this program so you really have time to take advantage of the learning. All right, here is the sample schedule. This is kind of what the 2020 cohort does. Now, in the previous slide, you saw block week. For those of you who haven't done a block week before, a block week is Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and you finish a whole course during that week. Now, I know that sounds a little bit intimidating. The first time I did a block week course, I was super nervous, but I actually ended up really enjoying it. Doesn't leave you any time to procrastinate, and you have all week to just focus on that one single topic. So a lot of students actually end up liking the block weeks, so don't fear them too much. But that is how the program kicks off, with a block week introductory to business class. And then after that, you're jumping into your very first 6-week session. So unlike your undergrad where you had 3 to 4 month long semesters, this program works in sessions, which are 6 weeks long. And that's how you're able to cover so many courses during the 10 months. So for example, here in the very first session with 4 classes, you have an HR class working with people, business analytics, managerial accounting concepts, and business communication. And before you know it, in November, you're moving on to your next session. There is a small break in this program over the Christmas time. So typically university shuts down around December 23rd until about January 4th. So you guys do get to enjoy that as a brief break, but then it's kind of back to work right away with your next session. The program finishes up with a capstone course, which is a really exciting opportunity because you're able to apply all that you've learned from your other courses into a larger project. For the inaugural cohort, they had 2 choices for their capstone project. They could either choose to work with WestJet at their Calgary campus for a week, or go to Banff and work with Alberta Tourism. So both groups got the opportunity to apply their learnings in very different ways with actual businesses, actual employers, and see how those concepts actually work in the real world. So that was a highlight for a lot of our students, and hopefully it will be for the 2020 group as well. All right, networking. So a lot of you have heard this term before, and it might make you a little bit nervous. But 80% of jobs are actually obtained by having a contact at a company that's in your network, and only 20% are obtained by just applying online without having a contact at that certain company. So it's really important for you guys to be building your networks in your master's degree program. And you can do this by interacting with your classmates, but we also try to embed a lot of different opportunities throughout the program for networking. For instance, we have a lot of in-class speakers. We do live cases. Live cases is where you're working with an actual company to solve one of their business projects for your class. We do lunch with leaders. The first group that wasn't online did a lot of site visits as well, and this will look a little bit different for the current cohort in the virtual world. And then we also have industry mentorship through our BMO mentorship program at Haskayne. We have a huge alumni network. Haskayne has been around for over 50 years. So there are over 25,000 alumni across 83 different countries. So never be shy to reach out to a Haskayne alumni. They're a pretty supportive and friendly group. All right, moving along to admission requirements. So you do need to have a 4-year undergraduate degree for admission to this program. Again, if you have a business degree, unfortunately, you would not qualify for admission towards this program. We would advise you to wait till you have the 2 years experience and then instead go for one of our MBA programs. We're looking for a 3.3 GPA out of 4 in your last 20 courses. And for those of you who weren't graded on a 4-point scale, this is a good opportunity for you to reach out to the admissions team. You can send us your transcripts if you have questions about whether or not your grades will qualify. Definitely don't be shy to reach out to us if you're uncertain about that. Now, if your GPA is between a 2.7 and a 3.29, there's still a chance of being admitted, but you might need to write the GMAT. The score would vary depending on what your GPA actually is. So again, this is a good reason to contact us and find out if you're going to need the GMAT, and if so, what score you're going to need. If your GPA in your last 20 courses is below a 2.7, unfortunately, you would not qualify for this program. Because it is so fast-paced and intensive, having a strong GPA is quite an important part of the admission process. It's a maximum of 2 years professional work experience after graduation for admission to this program because it is designed for new graduates. Now, if you're ever so slightly over that requirement, please reach out to our team to find out if you would still qualify. You know, if you're just a couple months over, that might still be okay. But we would also want to talk to you to kind of consult on which program would be better suited, because if you are right at that 2-year mark, technically you have the option of applying to the MBA program or to the Master of Management program, and you just might need a little bit more guidance or discussion on which program would be best suited for you. If you're applying as an international applicant, you will need a TOEFL or an academic IELTS score, and the requirements are listed there. So 97 on the TOEFL and a 7 on the academic IELTS. We get a lot of students a bit nervous to do their first accounting and finance classes. So we do have some preparatory modules available for you in D2L after you're admitted, but before you start the program. So you have the opportunity to go online and brush up in terms of accounting, finance, economics, and statistics. And also keep in mind, this program is not open to business degree graduates. So everyone is going to be quite new to the topic, and the professors do know that as well. So you don't have to be too nervous about those. All right, quickly to mention tuition with a big disclaimer here. The University of Calgary has not yet released its 2021 tuition, so these amounts are definitely subject to change. If you're very curious about this, you might want to touch base with us again in 2021 to find out what the new amount is going to be. But to give you a rough idea, tuition for domestic students is about $22,300, and for international students, it's about $43,000 for the 10-month program. All right, and how do you actually apply? You start with an online application form, so that is the easy part. You just fill out the online application on our website. Once you submit that, you're going to get access to a student portal where you can upload all your other documents. So if you don't see a spot for these documents in the application, do not panic. You don't submit them with the online form. You'll submit them after. So those documents include a current resume, 2 essay questions, 250 words each. We encourage you to be concise because that is the style of writing that is used in business. It's very much to the point and including relevant information. So we want to give you some practice at that right away. You're also going to need official transcripts. So those are transcripts that are in the unopened envelope of your school. Now, if you're a U of C grad, we have access to your transcripts, so please don't pay money requesting those. They will still send them to us. They'll still take your money, but don't do it. We can access those ourselves. Now, if you did an exchange somewhere, we'll also need those transcripts, so keep that in mind. And then if required, you may need to submit a GMAT or IELTS score. But again, I encourage you guys to ask questions to the admissions team if you're unsure about that requirement. one thing that's not on here as well is that you may be asked to do a virtual interview. There aren't references required for this program because we know that not everyone coming into the program will actually have work experience. So they are required for our MBA program, but they're not required for the Master of Management. All right, application deadlines. So the first round has already passed, but our second round coming up, the deadline is January 15th. The third round is March 1st, and this is the final round for international applicants. And then the final round for domestic students is June 1st. We do encourage people to apply as soon as possible because the program can be full before the deadline. So don't wait, get your application in early. If you need help with it, please reach out to our team. I'm gonna have some contact information for the admissions team at the end of the presentation, and it's also available on our website. Okay, career services. So next up, we're gonna have Gillian to tell you guys more about this, but just as a quick overview, at Haskayne, we do offer specific career services for each program. So for the Master of Management, we offer one-on-one consultations, practice interviews, workshops, career exploration, and lots of opportunities to connect with employers. So with that, I'm happy to introduce Gillian Robertson to tell you more about her and the career services available to Master of Management students.
Hello, good evening or good morning, depending on where you are in the world right now. Thanks for joining us. My name is Gillian, and I am the dedicated career coach for the Master of Management program. So I think I have the best job and the best student portfolio ever. And I can tell you a little bit about myself and the students who are part of the Master of Management program. So my background, I come from human resources. I am a Haskayne grad myself. Jim DeWald, our dean, taught me one of my last classes in my undergraduate degree. My HR experience comes from consumer goods, consulting, energy, and now academics. And I have a bit of experience in recruitment, training and facilitation, coaching and advising, and partnering with stakeholders. So why does this matter? Coming from a business background myself, I understand a little bit about where you guys are coming from, and in a lot of cases, the industries you're going to. Having worked in recruitment and performance management, I know what helps students stand out and excel in the workplace. And partnering with stakeholders, I bring lots of people in to meet you and talk about this program in the community. So that's a bit about me. On the next slide, we can talk a little bit about what does it look like. I normally find that everyone wants to know what is the makeup, who is in this program. I don't want to be the only one like me. What does this group look like? So we've got a pretty even split of gender, and it is a pretty local population. We have a lot of people who went to the University of Calgary, and a lot of people who are from Calgary but went to school elsewhere and then came back. So a pretty local audience. On the next slide, we'll talk about probably the most interesting piece, which is the diversity in this program. And so this actually looks a little bit different than last year's cohort. Last year, arts was winning from the most proportion of our students. And this year kind of flipped to science. And the thing that is a little bit misleading here is that engineers, depending on your university, you got tracked in both camp, like in the science camp and the engineering camp. So we have more like 8 engineers in the program. And then we have all kinds of different cool degrees like Bachelor of Fine Arts and Technology and Law and Health Studies. So we've got lots of different sort of makeup. So why I think this is cool, and I hopefully Desmond and Seamus, you guys can talk about it too, is that when you're in class together, when you're working with people who come with a really different world, like perspective and style of learning in the program. So you're really building that cross-functional collaboration skill that is very hard to find and extremely desirable right now in the marketplace. You hear about collaboration and bringing people with different perspectives. You're going to be in a group with, somebody with a science background and an arts political science background, and maybe tourism and hospitality background, and you're solving a business problem together. So that's what's really cool to me. About half of students come straight out of their undergrad, and the other half have gone away and worked and done something in between these two programs. So you know, a really neat mix in there. Yeah, the other thing that I think is kind of neat about that demographic that I'm just going to highlight is that when you're in your undergraduate degree, and maybe you're in kinesiology, for example, you guys are all kind of competing for the same pool of jobs. And, you know, you know, you're kind of all same if you're doing accounting at business school, you guys are all looking at the same kind of jobs at the end of the day. Whereas people in this program come out and do like completely different, cool and exciting things. So I know I'm going to get the question, and I'm probably going to answer it like a politician. Where do people go at the end of this program? I think you can go kind of anywhere and do anything, because it depends on you and what you like and what your interests are. So the industries are really diverse, and the types of jobs are really diverse for people coming out of this program, because it is a diverse group. All right, so that's a little bit more about the students. Okay, so what is Catalyst? So Catalyst is a program that spans your entire 10-month Master of Management program. And it's a professional development program that I designed specifically with you guys in mind. So it's a complement to everything that you're learning in the classroom, but it's focusing on your professional development and some job search skills, and even like those like really important things like resume, LinkedIn, and interviewing. So what I think people often miss, that it's probably helpful to highlight, is that Catalyst actually runs kind of like a course. I have a course outline. You guys, right now, the way we're running it is you pick Monday or Wednesday, and that's your day to focus on career development. And it's a quick hit where you're doing something that's helping you work towards your goal. Because what we know is that most people come to this program looking to become more competitive in their field, maybe to start a business, to pivot fields, but is often very much career related. So we don't want it to be this like completely optional thing. Go find Gillian in the corner when you're ready. It is part of the program. And so it has a bit of structure to it. So there's kind of those three components. There's coaching. So I meet with students one-on-one to talk about, okay, you know, what do I want to do at the end of this program? Helping with specific targeted resumes or cover letters. It's that one-on-one personal sort of advice and support. And what's nice is that typically I will have gotten to know you through the workshops, or have read a paper you've done, or something like that. So we're not starting in fresh, a couple months into the program. I have a good sense of students in this program. The experiential learning piece is a number of different things. So for example, we do culture spotlights this go around, which is we bring in a number of representatives who do sort of different roles within an organization, and students meet with a number of different people. So you hear about an organization in an industry, you talk to people in that industry. We did a career possibilities networking event recently, and those are people who have very different diverse roles, very diverse industries, and students kind of could pick who they got to meet with to customize that experience for themselves. So you're making connections, you're in the room with other Master of Management students. These guests have been brought in and know who you guys are as a class and are here to answer your questions about their career. So that's the kind of experiential learning opportunities. What I'm planning and happens in February is practice interviews. So we're working on that. That's kind of our next big experiential learning opportunity. And what you guys need to kind of maybe understand, and maybe Desmond and Seamus, you guys can elaborate, is, okay, so there's the Master of Management experiential, but then there's the Haskayne Career Center ones. And then there's CCAL and all of the centers, the Sustainability Center, so You know, and right now the Society for Master of Management does a great job at sort of curating and highlighting that, and even some of the other student clubs. But there are just so many opportunities for you guys to take advantage of. And the Catalyst ones are like dedicated time, you know who's going to be there, and I'm organizing that. But then there's lots of other ways for you to get in front and meet other people and participate in networking. So the workshop themes. So I want you guys to think of like these, what are they, chevrons, the red arrows, kind of like the length of your journey. Okay, so there's coaching along the length, there's your networking and practicing that business acumen along the length of the program. But here's how we kind of structure it. So at the beginning, we're going to start talking about career exploration and planning and what makes you unique. Then we start building the brand. So if we have a good sense of what makes us unique and how we add value and what we're interested in, then we can start thinking about crafting that resume. And I've just been reviewing your guys' awesome LinkedIn profiles the past few days, and like they're starting to look pretty stellar. So that's part of that next chunk. Then showing you are a fit, we're talking about cover letters and resumes and thinking about your audience. We focus on networking and transitioning into the workplace. So though you have this whole suite of workshops that happen kind of at regular times outside of your class times, where you can focus on career development. And then sort of what's happening from your perspective. We have a badge program, so I can talk through that next, what that kind of looks like. But it's kind of a micro credential to recognize the work and effort that you've put in around professional development. And that can demonstrate your competence, that you have a certain level of preparedness and you've taken steps to demonstrate that, you know, you've done some career planning, you have a solid resume, that kind of thing. And then you're going to start searching for a job kind of in the second wave, where we're talking, you know, job search. We're lining you up and we're preparing you for sort of that January start, where we start seeing a lot more jobs come out for new grads and stuff like that. And that's when we're going to start getting into that active job search. So the way we've structured all of this planning and stuff and work is to proactively prepare you for when you need it in January. Okay. So prepping a cover letter because you need a cover letter, and then prepping you for interviews because that's probably, hopefully, the next step. Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about some of the badges next. So these are what I think micro credentials. So what will happen is these are a way to sort of recognize the efforts. So typically each badge probably takes 2 to 3 hours. I'm guessing you guys spent a lot more than that on your resume, but yeah, but 2 to 3 hours is kind of my ballpark there. But it's good value add work. Where you go to a workshop, you learn a bit, you go and implement, and then submit something that then I review and give you some feedback on. And in some cases that opens up access to different events or things like that. So for example, you need to do the interview like a pro badge to get access to the great roster of practice interviewers from a number of different industries. There's kind of a couple of different levels of badges. So the first level is like, my goal was really for the vast majority of our students to do it. And that's what's happened. Everybody's really working towards that level 1 badge and sees the value in it. And when you've completed all those level 1 badge, you get a meta badge. And that's the one that you celebrate your success. And you can put it on your LinkedIn profile. Like it's a badge, it's a credential. The level 2 badges are, again, those are optional. There's no deadlines, and you really get to customize that experience. So if you're really wanting to focus around, your career development and where you want to go at the end of the program, then you can engage in the All-Star badge level. And then the personal brand All-Star is about, targeting that resume and application package. So those are the badges. So hopefully you're starting to see that, there's a structure and sort of process and stuff, which is different. I'm not sort of separate. I'm part of the program. And, even working with the program to think about how do we integrate as much as possible. So yeah, so that's a little bit more about the badge program. So it is 5:30. I've got a fair bit of time, hey? Okay, so are there any questions for me in the chat? And maybe we can go from there. Okay, that's an application. Are there students who plan to pursue professional school education after Master of Management? Yes. So that is actually what I've come to sort of recognize and realize, that for some students, there's a longer grad school journey at play. And some students are going to apply to law school or med school or something like that after, or probably during, potentially for this program. How might they go about job searches in early Jan when they're awaiting admission results in May? I think you start, right? Like, it's like everything. There's no guarantees. If you're applying to med school but you haven't heard back, then you start applying to jobs. And like any job, you might have applied to something but then got another job in the meantime, and so you say, sorry, I've got a plan, thank you very much, I'll decline the offer for an interview. So I'd say keep looking and keep moving forward. Yeah. Can Gillian talk a little bit more about the things you work towards for January? So the different, the different workshops and skills that we're building before January. So we start with kind of a skill the Clifton strengths, and thinking about what makes you unique and special, because that ties into also like what you want to do. So we do a career explorer badge and do some career mapping and thinking about what's important to us in our future career. I help a little bit and focus on informational interviewing and how to talk to professionals and ask questions. And one of the beautiful things in the program is that the BSEN class also does a lot of stuff that is really helpful for that. So you actually are asked to go out and meet professionals and have conversations about their career and industry and job, because that's the skill that you need to practice to then move towards networking and that 80% that Amanda was talking about of getting jobs through conversations and stuff like that. Then we focus on resume and LinkedIn. And those two are quite meaty and a lot of work. And so we're thinking about what we're great at, what we want, resume, LinkedIn, and we're working towards having like really great caliber in those. Wonderful.
There's a question here. Hi, Gillian, can you tell us more about how the career looks after graduation? Now, Gillian did mention it's pretty diverse, but Gillian, maybe you can give us some examples of what the first cohort ended up doing, kind of based on what their backgrounds were.
Yeah. Let me see. I always have to think of people, because there was only 28 in our first cohort, so I can actually picture them and think about where they're working. So I'd say I kind of think that there's kind of two camps. There's people who did a bit of a pivot and used a lot of the transferable skills to do something kind of different from what their undergrad would be. So a good example would be, having a kinesiology background and working in sort of an operations, sort of management kind of role within a small tech company. That's an example. Working in client-facing roles in banking, client-facing role within the tech industry. And those folks, one has an economics background, one has a science, psychology background. Political science student working in sort of doing some accounting work. So we have a few arts students who are doing actually some kind of finance, accounting, kind of early stage sort of support work, not maybe like CPA level work for sure, not that. I'm thinking we have a few folks who got into consulting roles, but unfortunately, due to COVID, some of the start dates have been pushed for people. And so I can't tell you what their day-to-day is looking like right now. it was a really challenging time for that first cohort to graduate, which I think everybody probably can empathize with. Let's see what else. We do have students who came maybe with a research background who are doing more research now. So people who lined up, or like an engineer who's doing business analysis basically for oil and gas companies in a very engineering context. So they're really playing to two different strengths. Political science background, doing sort of marketing and communications for a political advocacy organization. So a lot of times they are definitely pulling on different work experiences, life experiences, job experiences that made them the great candidate for the position they got.
Yeah,
that was really long, sorry, but probably the most interesting for people.
Just to add on to that, I think a lot of people come into the program thinking, oh, I see myself doing marketing, but then they actually end up falling in love with finance or operations. So people's goals within the program can kind of change as per their journey. So that exploration stage is really important to kind of figuring out what industry you do want to land in.
Yeah, I find people come into this program with an open mind. Of a little bit of like, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to see what's interesting to me. I know what I like, or that kind of thing. Or they really have like a real strong passion for maybe what they've done in their undergrad, and this is making them more competitive in that field. So you kind of have a bit of both. All right. So let me see. What else is there? Around when in the year do most students accept a new job position? It totally depends. Some students will line up jobs like a fair bit earlier in the program, a little bit less. Like there is that's not as common because you're super early in the program. So it's harder to sell your skills and that when you're, right away, immediately starting this program. We had students sort of accept offers. And the cycle last year was different. So it's going to be a little bit different for this year. After the programs, like towards the end of the program, and even due to COVID and the circumstances for the first cohort, it was, a little while after the program. So there's a full range. There's not if you don't have a job by January 30th, oh no, there's nothing quite like that, because you'll be applying to both new grad opportunities as well as available now kind of opportunities for full-time or contract positions. Oh, Rachel's asking about a nursing background, Desmond. So yes, each cohort has had one person with a nursing background, and Desmond can tell you about it. And I'm thinking, and both of our folks with nursing backgrounds are their own people, different people, and different passions and interests. So we definitely have. Can I work towards an MBA specialization after this degree? I'll leave that to you, Amanda. Okay, so were you able to give some examples of students who had an arts background? Yeah, definitely. We had a lot of arts backgrounds. Actually, in a lot of my examples, they were arts backgrounds in those examples of where students went to. Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Desmond, Seamus, what would you ask about the career side of things if you could do it over again? Or what would you want to know? Is there anything?
I think you've covered most of it. You covered more than I knew at this moment, actually. So I think I learned some things today too. So I can't think of anything I'd add.
Yeah, it goes really fast in orientation, hey? So yeah, so talking about what we're doing up next year, you guys haven't seen that yet. So that's great. All right. Amanda, any questions you'd like me to answer, or common questions you get?
Well, the biggest question I get is, what can I do after this program? And I think you covered that. It's so broad. And it's okay if you don't know exactly what you want to do. Most people coming in don't. And that exploration phase is really going to help you figure that out. Gillian, have you had anyone in the program who's kind of got a very clear idea, or has kind of decided after the career exploration phase?
I think people probably narrowed a bit or ruled things off their list that maybe they were thinking about. Some people come in with a lot of focus, and then I've already seen that focus shift for some of those folks too. So I think people start refining it. But the thing that I like to emphasize is the flexibility with this program. The beauty of business, in my mind, is that it's applicable to wherever, right? Whether you go into work for the federal government, whether you go into a nonprofit, whether you start your own business, business skills are just so useful. Accounting and finance, and understanding how to do a business plan, how to pitch something, how to do presentations. Those skills can be used in so many different ways. So that's why, you layer that onto the diversity of backgrounds. I really think there's so many possibilities, and I encourage students to maintain flexibility. So I would say, Seamus, yeah, you of course could, engineering is one possibility, but there are other possibilities too that would leverage like that highly analytical background and your business skills. So it's about identifying some of those.
Okay, and we have a couple more questions in the chat. Stephanie is asking, when students are working towards getting a job in January, that is after the program is over, right? Not during. It actually is during. Sorry, I'll let you take over, Gillian.
The program's still on in January. We want to start applying for jobs before we need them, so that that's the best success rate. It's better to look for something before you absolutely need it. So we start applying in January for like the new grad opportunities, because they are designed anticipating that students won't be done for a little bit. The closer we get to the end of the program, the more likely we're applying for like full-time, positions that are appropriate now. Yeah.
Another one here, how are networking opportunities in the age of COVID?
Yeah, you guys can talk about it. I find it's, they're great, and I still get great people, and I find people are really flexible, and it's easy for them to fit in. So I can get these great speakers and make things happen without the barrier of like driving and coming on campus. So I would say this year they have had the same caliber and quantity of events as last year. And because of the size of the cohort, I had to recruit way more people to be part of those events. So the difference is some of the intangibles that we understand in a Zoom environment. So it's going to feel a lot like this, but in breakout rooms where you're having conversations in small groups. So maybe there's like a little bit of an intro or all together, but then you are actively part of the conversation with an industry person and some other students in like a Zoom breakout room. So the missing piece is a little bit of the like butterflies in your tummy walking into Scurfield Hall to like go into a networking event. You're still like at your spot, at your computer right now, but the conversations are still great, and the volunteers are still great.
Stephanie is asking, I'm a bit unclear because you don't recommend students working. Sorry, just to clarify, we're not recommending that students start working, that just they start their job search. A lot of job postings are posted early with an expectation that you would actually start many months later. So I think that is the part that's a little bit confusing. Maybe Gillian can speak a little bit more about our first cohort and how many of them secured jobs early versus after they graduated.
It's a tougher comparison because we changed the start date of the program. So we only had like 2 out of the 28 secure job like a couple months into the program. The vast majority of them secured within the like 2 months preceding the end of the program / a month or 2 after the program. I was looking at the anonymous attendee. I think around walking the stage, as long as you've done all your classes, you can typically start the program. We had students who took a day off and walked the stage in our first cohort during the Master of Management program.
Yeah, you do need to be done your courses by a certain date. So if that's a little bit unclear, I'd recommend sending the admissions team an email, because that really can depend. If you have courses going through the summer, you're not actually able to be in 2 programs at once. And this program does actually start in August. So depending on the situation, that can cause a bit of a conflict. So definitely a good reason to email us with your circumstances to see which intake you would actually qualify for. But yes, it's okay to walk the stage after you begin the program, but all your degree requirements need to be complete. So most people convocate in the June before they start the program. There was a question about application rounds. Yes, the final deadline to apply for the program is in June. But we do rolling admissions for this program, meaning when we get an application, we're not waiting till June to evaluate it. We're evaluating it once it's complete and making a decision, meaning that technically the program can be full before the final deadline, which is why we encourage you to apply as early as you possibly can. Also, you may have noticed in that other slide that for international students, the deadline is earlier because they need to get a study visa. So if you're an international applicant, the latest date for you to apply is in the 3rd round, which is March 1st. Hopefully that answered the question. Have a question about the application resume. So you don't actually need to stress about your application resume too much. It should just be very comprehensive in terms of your education, your work experience, your volunteer work experience, and your extracurriculars. We're not picky about formatting because Gillian is going to help you perfect your resume once you're in the program. So we just need it to be very comprehensive so we can evaluate you as an applicant. Question about securing transcripts. If we went to another school, do we ask our current or previous school to send it to the U of C? Yes, you would. You would ask to send it to our MBA office and they would mail it directly to us, although some schools are now doing online transcripts as well. Okay, so this is potentially a good one for Gillian to answer. So this person is asking, given that it's a newer program, how well known is the Master of Management in the business community in Calgary and beyond? Most know about what an MBA is, but how many know what a Master of Management is?
Yeah, and that's one of the things we do tackle early on, is that because it's a newer program and there's not that many like it in Canada, you do need to explain the program and sell yourself with the program. So I'd say there's increasing awareness, but we do talk about, okay, how do you talk about the Master of Management program early on? Because you'll get that question, and you guys got that question lots, like, okay, what is the Master of Management program? Tell me about it. Which I think, if you take one lens, you can, oh no, like it's not well known. And the other lens you can take and say, okay, that presents an opportunity. It presents an opportunity to talk about myself and my skills and what I'm going to do out of this program, as opposed to being another maybe MBA that they go, oh, you're doing an MBA. So I've made assumptions and I'm not going to ask you follow-up questions. So I see it as an opportunity. And I also think it's an easy program to pitch. And whenever I do talk about it, people get on board and go, oh, I wish I had that opportunity. Oh, I would have loved a program like that. That makes a lot of sense. And so by, seeing it as an opportunity to talk about yourself and pitch yourself in the process and what you're getting out of it, I think it's a good thing. And so, yeah, that's my answer. I don't think there's not a huge widespread, like it's not a, like the next ketchup or Kleenex in terms of a brand at this stage, because, but I believe it will get there in terms of growth of knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, and as for the question about Calgary and beyond, a Master of Management program exists in many other countries. So when we first launched the program, to our surprise, we got a lot of international folks interested right away, asking questions about our program. So it does exist in other markets as well, and it's becoming a bit more popular across Canada too. There's programs in BC and Ontario for Masters of Management. And so it's definitely growing in awareness. And from the students from our first cohort that I've spoken to, they found it was actually a positive experience to get to explain the program and really sell all the skills that they developed and kind of the pressure they faced in the program of doing something completely new in this 10-month time frame. And they came out really confident as well. So I think it ended up being a good thing in a lot of ways. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions from Gillian here. We will have some more time at the end to get to the admission questions, but also if you guys have admission questions about your specific scenario, I really encourage you to contact our Master of Management email address and send a resume and a copy of your transcripts. We can give you a good idea of whether or not you qualify for this program. So definitely don't be shy to reach out for a pre-assessment. Okay, I'll give it just a few more seconds to see if any more questions come through for Gillian, and then if not, we're going to move on to chat with our current students. All right, let us move along. I'm pleased to introduce to all of you two of our current students. So these students just started the program in September, so they're about 3 months in through their 10-month journey. We have with us today Seamus Westra and Desmond Yu. They both have very different backgrounds, so I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, to tell you a bit about their background and why they chose this program and what their experience has been like so far, especially as it relates to being in the online environment. And I think we'll just start in alphabetical order with Seamus.
Oh, that's alphabetical order by last name. Okay.
Yes.
Desmond's one of the rare people that's lower in that order than me. Hi, my name is Seamus. I graduated in April of 2020 with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Calgary. So if there's anyone on the call who's been at Schulich School of Engineering, you know, it's a big deal to move to Haskayne. During that program, I got to complete a 16-month internship with Imperial Oil and really got a lot of exposure to business-related engineering roles and really developed a strong interest in doing project management in the future. So when I graduated in April and the situation was what it was, I had noticed this program in the advertising on campus and it had interested me, so I reached out. I actually chatted with Amanda on a Zoom call and learned a little bit more information about it and thought, you know what, this really dovetails nicely with what I'm interested in doing with engineering, or as Gillian said, it could allow me to pivot too. So I applied, I was accepted, and honestly, I've been really enjoying it so far. It's been a good experience overall. There's nice small classes. I know for me, I was often in a lecture hall with 100, 200 people, and you just feel like you're one in a million and everything like that. Or sorry, you're one of a big number. And it felt really impersonal, but we've had these nice small class sizes where we get to know everyone. We've talked a lot about interdisciplinary teamwork, and I've honestly loved that. You get to work with people from different backgrounds, get to hear different perspectives, get some of your own assumptions challenged. I know engineers especially get criticized a lot for having, you know, our own box that we try to fit everything in, and not everyone thinks like that. And so you get to learn and work with other people. You also get consistent teams to work with. You're assigned a team for each 6-week session, and you do all your group work across your classes together. And that's just been really fun. You get to know people like really well and get to work with them specifically. I've also thought the courses were really practical. You've got professors who have industry experience. They're teaching you using cases, real life examples of how these principles are applied in business and some of the uncertainty that comes with that. I've also just seen these are very practical and even relates back to my internship experience. It's very practical, honest, like things that I could actually see myself using in industry someday. And for the remote work, there's certainly been challenges with it. Conflict resolution gets really tricky. You know people, but you're talking to them through a screen. You know, you're talking a lot through like text messaging and things like that. And there's things that get lost in there a little bit. But I've thought that it's really good experience to have for the workforce. Some of the mentors and professionals I've talked to have said remote work it's an increasingly valuable skill, as I'm sure we all know. But it's good experience to have in the workforce. And honestly, I thought the universities handled it really well, at least in Haskayne specifically. I thought our profs did a good job of it. The biggest challenge I've seen so far, honestly, is that there is a step up in the expectations that come with being a graduate student. There's a lot of preparation, especially as we've talked about a lot. It's a sprint. It's very quick. So the profs only have 18 hours of lecture time with you to cover a whole bunch of content. So you have to come prepared. You have to be ready, and there's usually prep work for almost every class we do. So overall, has been a positive experience and something I've enjoyed, and really has been everything I've expected and more, which I've been really grateful for. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Seamus. That's really comprehensive, and we appreciate your background. Seamus is actually sitting in Haskayne right now. So if any of you haven't been, that is what our business looks like, our business school looks like currently. Next, we'll hear from Desmond. Someone in the chat was asking about people with a nursing background. So you may want to pay close attention to what Desmond is saying, and feel free to ask your questions for the student ambassadors once Desmond finishes.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Desmond, and like Gillian and Amanda mentioned, I have a background in nursing. So for me, I graduated in 2018, like Seamus did, also from the University of Calgary, but from the Faculty of Nursing. And since that time, I was lucky, and I've been working ever since till about September. But this program really attracted me because I found out about it in the beginning of 2020, just before the pandemic happened, because I was thinking about making a change. And I was always thinking about doing an MBA, but I was always really nervous to do it because I came from a nursing background. I was worried the learning curve would be too steep. So when I heard that they made a program for non-business majors, I felt like it was tailored for me. And then when they said it was for 0 to 2 years of experience, I was like, how could I not apply? So then when I went to apply, I first met Amanda in February, and it was great. She walked me through everything. So if you guys have any questions, honestly, just book an appointment, and then you guys can meet, and she'll explain everything to you, and it's very clear. And yeah, the admission process was really easy. I remember we had to do a video interview, and it was really scary because they didn't tell you what the questions were before. It just popped up on the screen and then gives you like a minute to prepare, and then you have like 2 minutes to say what you have to say. So that was quite eye-opening for me because I've never done anything like that in my career or my undergraduate degree. But I see why they did it because especially with the online learning environment, everything's virtual and you have to be comfortable in front of the camera, which is very different from presenting in person. Because I used to be good at presenting in person, but when I had to go in front of the camera the first time, I remember stuttering, shaking, and just like getting nervous, giggling. But yeah, so after this program, I really would like to move into management for Alberta Health Services as a nurse manager, or maybe move on to the headquarters eventually. So I think a master of management degree would look perfect with my nursing experience, and that's what I'm hoping to leverage after this program. Something I really enjoy in this program is a lot of the finals, they're case-based. So you have to apply what you're learning rather than just regurgitating facts. So instead of having to memorize all these formulas or whatever people do in their other classes, you just remember what you learned. And if you keep up with your work all through the semester, you don't really even have to study because then you already know it. You just read the case and then you give it 2 or 3 hours to write it out. And obviously, when you first start out with case finals, they're intimidating and they take forever. But then, just like anything, the more you practice, the better you get. So then I'm hoping by the time I graduate, I'll be able to finish case studies in like 2 hours, maybe. What's been challenging has been definitely coming from a nursing background. I don't have Seamus's Excel skills, so that was a little learning curve for me. But it's really nice working in an interdisciplinary group because, like I said, like I'm really good with research papers. So I was able to edit everything and make sure it was up to APA standards because that's what Haskayne uses. And other than that, it's really nice to learn from each other, have different perspectives, and then just have a nice holistic approach to tackling problems. And for the online environment, for me, it was really tough because I was really excited to go back to school because I realized it might be my last time going back to school unless I pursue like another master's. So I really wanted to make the most of it. So when I found out in late August that it was all mostly online. I was really disappointed, but then I tried to keep things in perspective. Like, it would be really bad if we were in class and then we were ready to write tests in person and then they flip it on us, just like I'm sure some of you who graduated earlier this year. You had half the semester in class and then the rest was online, and it was just unorganized. So I'm thankful that everything was online for us this year, and hopefully it'll be different next year for you guys. But all in all, my experience is pretty good so far. I'm able to learn business skills and career development skills through Catalyst with Gillian. And then, yeah, that's all I have to say. Are there any questions, anything you guys are curious about?
Yeah, guys, so please now start typing questions for Seamus and Desmond if you're wondering anything from a student perspective that you're curious about in the program, like workload, balancing things, group work. Don't be shy to type your questions. I just wanted to reiterate something that Desmond said. He mentioned being that it's an interdisciplinary program, you have a lot of resources in your classmates, and being that it's a cohort-based program, you get to know everyone pretty well. We do a lot of group work at Haskayne, as some of you may have heard. So a lot of times you're in a group and that group has a diverse skill set. So you're able to get help on things that may not be your strong suit from one of your group members, and you're also able to contribute what you're strong at to your group. So it tends to work out really well, and some really strong relationships come out of the program. I know with the first cohort, a lot of them made some friends for life, and they ended up having a lot of social activities outside of the classroom as well. Of course, that looks a little bit different now with COVID. And another thing Desmond hit on is the program being online. So I know one of the questions we'll probably get is, well, what about fall 2021? Is that going to be online? Unfortunately, we don't know yet. What we do know is that the University of Calgary has announced that the winter semester will be online. As for spring, summer, and fall, it has not yet been announced, and I think it will really depend on the rollout of the vaccine and how the case numbers are looking. So tough to predict right now, but we're all kind of hoping for the best. This was designed as an in-person program, so as soon as it's safe to do so, I think we'd like to return to that format. Seamus brought up a good point, though, that I think going forward there will be a lot more remote work, remote meetings, people having Zoom sessions rather than traveling. So it is a really great skill to, you know, build up your communication in the online environment and get accustomed to it, get comfortable. It's also something you can sell in interviews as well. I think the program is a little bit more challenging if you have to do it online, and that's something that you can talk up. All right, so I'm seeing a few questions for Seamus and Desmond here. Can you please talk a bit more about the preparation work before class time? How much time would you say you dedicate roughly? Either one of you can jump in.
Ooh, that depends on the class and the professor, admittedly. I know, and Desmond, you can tell me anything you do differently. I found last quarter we had less prep. I would say we had maybe 2 of our classes had about an hour of prep per class session each, maybe. It feels forever ago now, even though it was 5 weeks ago. But this quarter, it's been more consistently, probably an hour or 2 before class, per class-ish. I know the estimate they usually give us is that you should be doing 2 hours outside of class for every hour of class time. So you have 3 hours of class time per week. So they usually say 6 hours. I would say maybe not that much, but definitely in the 4 to 6 range, depending per class. So I hope that answers your question, Desmond.
Yeah, it's true. It depends on the class because everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. So for me, I remembered my hardest class was definitely the analytics class when we did statistics using Excel, and that took me a little bit longer. And I had to do my own research too. Like I had to watch some YouTube videos just to get even better at it.
All right, and we have another question here, and this is a really common one that I get in admissions. I'm an art student and very distanced from math. I'm quite worried about this. How do you find the difficulty of the math component in the program?
I don't want to jinx it. We haven't had too many classes yet, but so far it's manageable. The professors are always there for extra time. There's tutorials, and then even though it's online, they're always willing to stay a little bit later if you need help. So you just have to make the effort if you're struggling. But otherwise, I felt pretty good, even not coming from a math background.
I know, having stated my background, that my opinion on this feels a little outside, but I want to touch on something Amanda said too about leveraging your classmates. I know I personally have helped members of my cohort that have struggled with math. I know that there are people who will be willing to help you, and you're working with 4 people all the time, and they build the teams with your strengths in mind. So you will likely have someone who can help you learn that's a peer instead of a professor. And I'll echo what Desmond said too. The professors are great about giving extra time to help, especially with smaller classes.
Yeah, I'd say the engineers who come into the program make a lot of friends. Last year it was the same. Our engineering grad was very popular, and he was really helpful for a lot of the students. So definitely a good piece of advice to utilize your classmates, build those relationships. And also, as a Haskayne grad myself, I find the professors at Haskayne are very approachable. So don't be shy to attend office hours or email your professor for some extra help or tips. In most cases, they're more than happy to go over something again or explain it in more detail. So if you're worried about math, you need to kind of be aware that those quantitative classes, you're probably going to need to spend a little bit more time. So you want to budget that in your schedule. And don't psych yourself out. Just work towards it, get the help, spend the time, and you should do well.
I just wanted to do a shout out. Those arts, the arts background are the ones editing the papers and, like, you know what I mean? So like there's, because you do a lot through projects, there's an ability to balance each other out a bit and support each other too. So yeah. And I think there's also a recognition in this program that we're not trying to turn you into like hardcore accountants. We're trying to give you management accounting like skills, which is different. That's making decisions, understanding the fundamentals, as opposed to maybe making you into accountants. So that's like a different lens of how you would teach, right? You know, more case studies and decision making, that kind of thing.
Very good point. I'm surprised you guys are not typing more questions for Desmond and Seamus. Please feel free to include some more. In the meantime, I'll tackle a couple of the admission ones that are in here. There's Rachel asking about the interview, the video interview for the application. Can you speak about that a little bit more? Don't be too nervous about the video interview. Last cohort, everyone did a video interview, and this year we're doing it a little bit more selectively. So if we feel like there might be a little bit of gap in your application, then you may be invited to do a video interview. The platform itself will allow you to do some practice questions to get used to the format, but the types of questions asked are going to be very similar to in some ways to what a job interview might ask. Like, tell me about a time you needed to use teamwork skills, or when you used leadership skills and what was the outcome. So thinking about times in your degree where you had to use teamwork, or thinking about any work experience you've had where you've used teamwork or leadership skills. And one other really important thing going into the interview is to make sure you've done your research on the program, you've reviewed the website. If you've had questions, maybe you've reached out to the admissions team and you know why you want to do this program, and you know what features about the program appeal to you. As long as you have those bases covered, you should do pretty well in the interview. In most cases, it's not totally make or break. We understand that a video interview is new for a lot of people, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking. So you don't need to place too much pressure on yourself going into the video interview. Just really do your best and make sure you've done your research. I have a question here about the competitiveness of the admission process. I don't have all the exact numbers in front of me for how many people apply, but what I can tell you is that it's a little bit different for international students versus domestic. As you can imagine, we receive applications from all over the world, and there are, 7-8 billion people in the world now. So There's a lot higher ratio of international applicants versus how many spots are available. So it is a little bit more competitive for international applicants. If you're concerned about it, I encourage you to reach out to us with your resume and transcripts to get a better idea of your eligibility. As for domestic students, it's a little bit different. So if you strongly meeting all the admission requirements and everything looks good and you apply early enough, your odds of getting in are quite strong. Again, we do rolling admissions, so the program can fill before the deadline. So you have better chances if you apply early. And also, if you reach out to someone on our admissions team and get some advice, that can also help you. So if you're concerned about that, my recommendation is, of course, to contact us.
If I could interrupt for a second, Desmond mentioned this and I just want to highlight it. Amanda is fantastic and will answer all your questions. I think I sent something to a chat bot once and on the application site when I was figuring things out, and then she emailed me back and said, why didn't you just email me? So just so you know, the admissions team is fantastic for answering questions and clarifying things as you go through the application. So add that in there.
Oh, thank you, Seamus. All right, so another admissions question here. Do you see the most intake in the latter 2 rounds of admission? Was the cohort filled before rounds 3 to 4 for the current cohort? Yes, because students are kind of graduating, finishing their programs in April, May. That is often when they start to think about applying for a graduate program or jobs or whatnot. So we do see a high volume during that time. So that's why it's to your advantage to apply early. We also, on the other end of the spectrum, have a big volume as soon as the application opens, because people have kind of been waiting, chomping at the bit for it to open. And then in the middle, there is a slight lull. So there's still a lot of room in the second round, and it really can be nice to apply in that round and make sure everything's all settled. For international students, it's really important to apply in the first or second round because all those international spots may be definitely full before the final round. Good question. Any other questions for Desmond and Seamus in here? So remember, guys, you can ask all your admissions questions to me via email. So do take advantage of Seamus and Desmond being here. We do have a few scholarships for this program. They're not based on financial need, they're based on academic merit. So they'd be evaluated automatically when you apply, and you'll find out in your admission letter offer if you were awarded one. And that is really just based on GPA. Of course, you can look for scholarships outside of the program through government and companies as well. Oh, here's one for Seamus and Desmond. Are you happy you have taken this program?
I'm happy I took this program. I was gonna say something else, but I forgot.
She also followed it up with, what is the #1 thing you've gotten out of it so far?
That's right. For me, yeah, I realized your undergraduate degree doesn't have to define you. You can always do something different. In fact, it's just a stepping stone is what I realized.
Yeah, I'd also say I'm happy that I've been having a lot of fun the last few months and enjoying it. And I detailed that a little more earlier. The #1 thing I think I've gotten out of it, this is very niche and specific to my background, but I think I've recognized the value of the skills I have. Particularly with an engineering background, I kind of knew there was a lot you could do with an engineering degree, but now I kind of see why. So yeah, I think it's learning what you're good at and how to leverage that well in a variety of situations. It's been one of my biggest learnings so far.
All right, another follow-up question to that. Do you find the classwork is similar to undergrad, or is it more intensive? And that's actually a common question we get as well. So it's great to hear your guys' perspectives on this.
It's more intensive because there's less time. But compared to a BCom, the BCom goes into a little more depth than we do. But it's not much different. We just have to do it in a shorter amount of time.
Yeah, I would echo that. It's a different type of work, I think, in a lot of ways. They ask you to think more when you get higher education, I find, but it's similar, it's similar levels of work, but different types, I would say.
Yeah, because for both programs, our program and the undergraduate program, we're building business skills and a foundation so we can build on those skills.
Okay, another question here. Can you guys speak a bit more to the group work aspects versus the individual work? So maybe how much of it is group work? How much of it is individual? Do you guys have preferences?
I think most of the work throughout the semester is individual. There's some things that throw it off. My group had a presentation on the first day of one of our classes this quarter. For some reason, most people don't have that. Most of your group work is loaded towards the back end for your bigger projects and things like that. I found with the occasional presentation sprinkled throughout. So that's what I would say so far. Desmond, am I missing any big group projects that I've blocked out of my mind from the last few weeks?
I'm not really. I just find that when you do group work, it's more reflective of real working conditions when you graduate, because you always have to work in teams. It's seldom you do anything alone. So you really have to get along with everybody because you don't always get to pick your team.
Which is real world. You don't get to pick your team in your office, in your business or your professional environment either. So I think what I hear from students a lot is that it's like they're going, okay, well, maybe there's a bit of ambiguity in this assignment, but I get, that's helping me build skills that are very applicable, because my boss might not walk me through how to do that. They're going to give me the problem and I got to figure certain things out. And yeah.
All right, a couple of other things I wanted to mention. Oh, sorry, we have one more question for Shaman and Desmond here. Beyond classes and group work, how is the student life and cohort experience? Is there a lot of casual collaboration, social events? And how is this happening in the COVID era?
Casual collaboration, yeah, I'd say there's some of it. I don't know. Desmond and I are in the two separate cohorts, so Desmond and I don't see each other much, but with the people that we are in the same classes with, we definitely all talk a lot. You got group chats and things like that, and we planned some like study sessions together, stuff like that. All of your group work is defined with the same few people for the length of the 6-week session. So most of your collaboration is dedicated with that group for a 6-week span. There was one case, I think, that we got to pick whoever we wanted to write with, but that's a little different. Social events, our society's been planning stuff on Zoom. There's been some in-person things, but restrictions have really kind of prevented that from being to something that we can really do. So I think as far as COVID goes, it does suck to not be in person and to not know how tall your teammates are, but you do get to, it's been handled really well, I think, and you've got the professional Zoom license, so you can spend a lot of talking and chatting. It's not easy, but I think we've handled it pretty well, I would say.
Yeah, and even though Seamus and I aren't in the same cohort, like I'm in the afternoon, he's in the morning, we're still in the same fantasy football league. And
oh, don't bring that up. I'm still upset about that one.
So there's always opportunities to make friends and join groups. You just have to put an effort out and step out of your comfort zone, even in the COVID era.
Yes, we have a question here about the two cohorts, so that is a little confusing. For our very first iteration of the program, we just had one cohort, but the program grew a lot over that 1 year. So for the 2020 group, there are two cohorts of about 40 students each. One cohort has their classes in the morning, and then their kind of other activities in the afternoon. And then the other cohort has their classes in the morning and then their other activities the opposite way. So that's kind of how the two cohorts work this time around.
And it does switch too. So I've been all morning classes throughout the first 2 quarters, and then it will switch to afternoon. So we'll flip flop. So Desmond will become more coffee.
Okay, yeah. So
I'll get to sleep in a little.
Yeah, that way it's a little more fair for everyone in case you're not a morning person. It will switch up. Yeah, so for 2021, we would expect to have 2 cohorts as well. I did want to mention to you guys that we have a graduate programs open house coming up in January. So it's a really exciting opportunity to meet current students. We'll have some more current students there that you can hear from. We'll have some alumni from the program. We'll have professors, and we'll also have our dean joining us. The dean will give a welcome to everyone, and then there'll be breakout rooms. So you can learn more about the Master of Management program there, or if you're kind of on the fence and you're not sure if the MBA program might be a better fit, you might want to attend the MBA program breakout room for the open house to get a good idea of both programs. It's going to be January 21st, 6 to 9 p.m. So hopefully everyone will be able to attend. I will email out an invitation to all of you who attended this webinar. So look forward to that. You'll also be able to register on our website. I don't think it's live just yet, but it should be very soon within the next week or so. I also wanted to put up the contact for the Master of Management program. So if you have any questions about your particular situation, please don't be shy to reach out. This is the email address where you can get a hold of us. We try to reply the next day, like as quickly as we can. So any questions you have, please send those over. Our website is also a good resource if you actually go through and click on it. We have an online information session up there as well. So if you missed the first part of this, the information session part, you can go back and watch it on our website. This webinar is also being recorded and will be available on YouTube as well if you want to watch it again. Yeah, I think that is all we have for you, unless you guys have any last questions for Desmond, Gillian, or Seamus. There is one question here that was asked earlier that we didn't quite get to. Are there any specific considerations for online remote learning for this program that are different from in person in terms of course format and assessment? This program and a lot of the other business programs at Haskayne are not as much focused on exams as they are focused on cases and assignments. So I don't feel like the online environment had to make too many accommodations for exams, but I know as a university, we've decided to give a little bit more time than normal for exams and have students be able to choose within a 24-hour period when they wanted to do their exams in some instances. So we have made a few accommodations, but I think the grading for this program lends itself quite well to an online environment in terms of it shouldn't impact your ability to do your assignments. I don't know if Seamus and Desmond have any extra input on that of how online might be very different from in person in terms of assignments and grading and things like that. No?
I think it's hard to compare because it's different type of courses anyways. That would be the only thing I would say.
Yeah, and I can't remember what it used to be like. All I remember is like virtual learning now. It's really sad.
We have a question here. You both mentioned some work experience. Did you find that has helped you in the program?
Desmond's got more work experience than me. Mine was more an internship that I took between the 3rd and 4th year of my degree. I did because I was in an environment where it was very business focused. I think that was one of the things where I learned that business is kind of the language you can talk to and be able to relate to a lot of different people, which is what made me think about potentially doing an MBA down the road, which is why I was so open to the Master of Management. So some of the terminology was familiar just because of the environment I was in specifically. I did have a good frame of reference to relate it to as well. So I would say it helped me in particular.
For me, working for 2 years just helped me mature and become more responsible, more of an adult. So I was more ready for a graduate program. I don't know if I could have taken this program right out of a nursing degree.
Yeah, I think it very much depends on individual mindset and readiness for a master's program. We definitely have a mix of both, as Gillian's chart showed. We have people coming in straight from their degree, and we have some people that have gone out and worked a little bit. So we definitely welcome both types of backgrounds as long as you're not too much over that 2 years of work experience. All right. Oh, there's a question here about how do you choose morning or afternoon? You don't actually get to choose. We put you into cohorts behind the scenes. And as I mentioned, you do get to switch timings. So we try to make it fair for everyone, but you're not gonna choose your cohort. All right, well, that is all the time we have, folks. I hope you'll join us for open house, and please reach out with any questions. A big thank you to Desmond, Seamus, and Gillian for joining us for this live webinar. Thanks so much, guys.